Morning, guys. I just want to talk about something that I don't think too many people cover, which is basically marriages take work. And I see a lot of stuff where people will run down Filipinas in the sense that they go, oh, they're bad, you can't marry a Filipina, my Filipina did this, my Filipina. A lot of the time, I would say that the relationships were failed at the day one, and I do cover this so often. You know, like if you're getting a 18 to 25-year-old that simply does not come off the mobile phone, that is not a relationship. That's a call center. It's you've got no connection there whatsoever. So why do you think it fails? They didn't connect with you in the first place beyond the monetary version. They're looking at an easy life. If they're the sibling in the family that has sat on their backside, which many do, you will find they're expecting to sit there and not even make dinner, although you've been at work all day and they've had nothing else to do. That's where some of these people fit in their own family unit, because they'll have older siblings that are going out there earning the money that pays for their parents. They'll have other relatives that are simply doing the stuff around the house, etc., etc. And you find it's often the youngest person in the family that does absolutely nothing if they can help it. And they're often encouraged, because it's often encouraged from a parent in the sense that, oh, it's the last child, they're going to grow up, so they get away with murder. So marrying one of these women, what do you think happens? You're not looking at somebody that's got any responsibility, somebody's not looking to get any responsibility, somebody that has no interest in doing anything beyond suiting themselves. And that includes you. At the end of the day, you're going into a relationship where you are part and parcel somebody that is just going to pay for them through life, and that's the way they're looking at it. And to get beyond that, it's bloody difficult, I'll tell you that now. And this is where a guy's going, oh well, you know, my wife left me. How old was she? Oh, she was 19 or 22 or whatever. I really don't care. In the same way, other relationships are not going to work when they go to the West, purely because of some of the stuff that goes on. But a lot of it you can recognize before that happens. I mean, for example, like I said, the mobile phone's one of the things. The obsession with Prada and other garbage, that's another one. Keeping up with the Joneses and then getting into the old gossip groups with other women, etc. That's toxic. And I'm not sure if I actually published this one. I was on about this the other night, actually, relating to Women's Night. I don't agree with Women's Nights. Women's Nights is a night off where they can go and screw around. That's the way I see a Women's Night. Now, it's not me insecure or whatever, but quite simply, women meeting up to go to a restaurant is one thing. Women meeting up to go to a nightclub and get drunk is another. I don't agree with it. It's something they should have grown out of. The only reason they're doing it is an excuse to see what's out there. And that's what a nightclub is. And then in the Philippines, they see it as that anyway. This is the craziest thing, the bit you may not be aware of. Them hanging out in a nightclub is to meet other people in the Philippines. So why would they think it's okay in the West to do the same? I'll leave that to you. Another thing is to be aware that marriages take work. And it's not a case of it's always going to be rosy. It's not always going to work out, and it's not always going to be plain sailing. Drifting occurs a lot. People drift apart because of work, issues in the relationship that they don't fix, and there's many other reasons that people simply drift apart. In those cases, you need to work the marriage. You need to pull things together on a regular basis. Conflict with conflict doesn't make a plus. What you need to do is actually find a solution. And it does take a lot of communication, and sometimes it can be hard work, but if you want your marriage to be successful, you've got to put the time in. The other thing is, it's not a one-way street. There's no point in you putting 100% in, and even if she puts 5% in, it ain't gonna work. You know, when I say 5% in the sense you could put 1% in, but if she ain't committing to the same level as you are, then the relationship ain't going to work. In the same way, if guys do that, it doesn't work either. There's a lot of guys I know that quite happily just have a wife for for their bedroom, let's just call it that, and dealing with the house. Yet they seem to have no attachment with their wife whatsoever. And so when they take them to the West, they wonder why suddenly the wife's off and gone. There's no relationship there. You've got a maid with benefits. That's what you've set up. You need to move away from that stuff. That is not going to last forever. And in the West, as soon as they meet up with other Filipinos, they go, do you know you can get the house off your husband? Do you know you can get half his paycheck? Do you know that you never have to work again because this guy will pay for you for the rest of your life? Really? So why am I cleaning and everything else? And yeah, it sounds like a great idea. And a lot of the time, it's guys setting themselves up. And the reason I say that is because a lot of the time they marry the wrong women. A lot of the time they get married when they don't need to marry. And another one is quite simply, they don't put any effort in. And I've got to admit, I do put a fair bit into my relationship. For example, I look after the in-laws. You know, at the end of the day, I brought April's mother over on holiday. April's mother doesn't have to worry about bills or stuff because we take it out of some of the business. But at the same time, it's, you know, I looked at it from another perspective. When I was out in the Philippines, I thought we could make some cash here, generate a cash revenue. Then I don't have to get caught into these disputes where other people get caught in. Some of it is where they're, like, say, for example, April was working and send all the money home to her relatives. To hell with that. You know, at the end of the day, the relatives are capable of working, and I know April's mother can't move around a lot, but you know what? She still runs her own sari-sari store. She still does a lot of stuff herself, and at the end of the day, she's not a liability. A lot of the Filipinas families are a liability because they're expecting a payday. They're expecting to constantly keep feeding money off you and your partner. And I say you and your partner because if you're paying 100% of the bills and they're sending all their money home, they're leeching out your pocket because you're having to pay half of what's going out there because half of that should have been on the bills. And I do stress all this out there because if you're serious about getting married and serious about getting a relationship, start the communication rolling. Start talking about it before you go down the aisle because then there's no excuse. You know, oh, I didn't know this was going to happen. Yes, you did, because we discussed it all before we even got married. And that's one of the things I will say. That's why when people say, Matt, why did you move to Europe? Because we discussed it back in 2007, that we had a 5-year plan. And that's why we ended up moving. It was just good timing when we did move because quite simply we'd had an earthquake. The kids were getting to an age where they were getting ready for going into primary school rather than preschool, and things were starting to fall into place. And obviously moving to Europe before this whole Brexit shenanigan is an important one. So there's many reasons, but in 2007 we'd already discussed that before we even got married, that we would end up in Europe. And a lot of guys don't even think about this stuff. And this is why I'm quite strong on saying, look, you cannot blame Filipinas for everything that goes wrong in your life. A lot of guys are not marriage material. And that's why I often say, don't get married. If you're not marriage material, don't get married. If you feel insecure or whatever, change the way you are. Work on that first. You'll find a partner, but you're better off investing time in yourself first and getting to grips with your own life. Once you get to that point, there is plenty of women out there. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not short of women. If I wasn't married, there is plenty of women that would quite happily drop into this space if there was one. And at the same time, if I wasn't married, in all honesty, I'd be quite happily single. Alright guys, thanks for watching.